If you vanished tomorrow, nobody would miss you, my son remarked as everyone around the tea table laughed. That was the exact moment I decided to vanish. 3 days later, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. 30 missed calls, and suddenly I was the one they were frantically trying to find. Can you imagine spending 2 decades building a life with someone, only for them to throw it all away and remarry someone else before the ink on your divorce papers is even dry? What kind of person does that? Because that's exactly what my ex-husband, Dan, did to me. I remember that day like it was yesterday. The Cook County Courthouse, the signed documents, the detached air as Dan took his copy. All right, it's done. Don't call me again. Let's just live our own lives, he said, turning his back on me. 20 years of marriage dismissed with a shrug. I watched him walk away and let out a laugh, a hollow, bitter sound that shocked even me. 20 years gone. 4 days later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from a friend. Sarah, did you know Dan got remarried? I just saw him doing a wedding photo shoot. My expression didn't change. I knew. I just knew. Chloe Jensen. They'd been seeing each other for over a year. The betrayal felt like a gut punch, but it wasn't a surprise. That afternoon, I sat in my office at Green Valley Foods, the company Dan and I technically co-founded, but which I actually ran. I opened my laptop and started digging. Megan Miller, Dan's younger sister, my former sister-in-law, an employee for 5 years. I scrolled through her records, performance reviews, client management logs, procurement orders. As I opened each file, strange inconsistencies screamed at me. Why were all the client contacts listed with personal cell phone numbers? I saved the file, leaned back, and just stared out the window. Emotions? I'd deal with those later. Right now, I had a company to protect. Meanwhile, Dan's mom, Barbara, was out there, practically bragging to neighbors. My son is getting a fresh start, she beamed. He met a wonderful younger woman. Someone asked about me, his wife of 20 years. Oh, she was always so cold, Barbara sighed dramatically. Never cared for housework. Always at the office. It wears a man down. She framed the whole thing as my fault, never once mentioning that her son had been having an affair. These things happen, she dismissed. As long as my son is happy, that's all that matters. No regret, no sympathy, just justification. It was infuriating. Then there was Chloe. Her Instagram updated the next day. A photo of a sofa buried under luxury shopping bags. Chanel, Gucci. The caption. A wedding gift to myself. My life starts now. Hashtag happy day, hashtag new beginnings, hashtag treat yourself. She chirped in her story. These are presents from me to me. One by one, she pulled out designer handbags, shoes, wallets, flashing the price tags. People say you have to make sacrifices in marriage, not me. I'm the main character of my life. Her voice was defiant, as if spending Dan's credit card into oblivion was a trivial detail. That evening, I opened the family group chat on my phone. The Miller family. Barbara, Dan, Megan. I scrolled up. Old messages. I'll handle the Thanksgiving preparations. Mom, I'm taking you to your doctor's appointment. Megan, I reviewed that report for you. All from me. The replies. Okay. THX. Got it. I stopped scrolling. I quietly tapped leave conversation. A system message. Sarah Hayes has left the chat. No one reached out. No one cared. Then, I opened the company-wide chat. I typed a brief, professional announcement. Subject, upcoming meeting regarding organizational restructuring. Details to follow. It was standard corporate speak, devoid of emotion. My employees saw nothing unusual. But for me, the plan was already in motion. 2 days later, Barbara called the office. Hello. I answered. Sarah, it's me. Listen, you know our Megan is a good worker, right? What is this about, Barbara? I asked, my voice flat. I'm hearing strange rumors at the company. You're not thinking of firing Megan, are you? Her voice was laced with suspicion. Barbara, that's a company matter. You need to separate personal and professional matters. Personal and professional? Is that what you're pulling now? We were family. I'm not your daughter-in-law anymore. We're divorced. Even so, Megan is my daughter and a long-time employee of your company. You don't just fire people based on a whim. You're right, I said coolly. That's why she will be judged on her performance alone. I hung up before she could reply. Barbara was furious, but I had already moved on. I called my head of HR, Please draft a memo on restructuring the operations support team, I said quietly. Of course. Is there a particular area of focus? Client contact lists. I want all client information migrated from personal accounts to the central company system. Make that a priority. The HR manager nodded. I pulled out Megan's file again. Every client contact was her personal cell number, the associated email, a personal Gmail account, not a company one. She was treating company assets as her personal property. A small, knowing smile touched my lips. Now I understood why Megan was so confident in her abilities. She hadn't built relationships for the company. She had created a private network that she alone controlled. And I was about to reclaim it. The stage was set. I spent a week gathering evidence. Client communication logs, purchase order approvals, payment confirmations. Everything routed through Megan's personal channels, not the company system. Monday morning. Megan, can you come to the conference room? What's up, Sarah? Megan walked in, coffee in hand, completely at ease. She clearly couldn't imagine being fired. Have a seat, I said, placing a stack of documents on the table. Megan glanced at them, then Saturday, this meeting is about the organizational restructuring. Restructuring? Her tone sharpened. What does that have to do with me? As part of this restructuring, your position, manager of operations support, is being eliminated. Your employment is terminated, effective immediately. Please review this paperwork and sign. I slid the notice across the table. Her face went pale. What? Terminated? What are you talking about? We are consolidating roles within the operations support team to eliminate redundancies. The justification is sound. Redundancies? Who's going to manage my clients without me? Her voice rose. From now on, all client management will be centralized through the company system, I replied calmly. The practice of using personal accounts will no longer be permitted. And that's a problem for me? It's not a problem. It's an improvement. Allowing a single employee to monopolize company assets creates unacceptable risk. My gaze was steady. Megan threw the papers down, shot up from her chair. Fine, I'll leave. But you'll regret this when you see how much better I do somewhere else. Perhaps, I said evenly. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. She scoffed, stormed out, and slammed the door. The sound echoed through the office. That afternoon, Barbara showed up. She marched into the middle of the open plan office and bellowed, Sarah Hayes, get out here. Employees looked up. Barbara threw open my office door. Barbara, you can't cause a scene in the workplace. A scene? You have the nerve to fire my daughter. Her voice carried. Whispers started. Whether I have the nerve is not for you to judge, I said, my voice calm. I'm the head of this company, and restructuring is my decision. Your decision? Do you have any idea how hard Megan worked? She yelled, pointing a finger. I stood up, quietly closed the door. Barbara, this is a business issue. It won't be resolved with emotion. Emotion? You fire someone and feel nothing? You cold-hearted woman. She slammed her hand on my desk. I didn't react. I just waited. Eventually, she ran out of steam and left. After she was gone, I called in the head of accounting. Please proceed with overhauling the expense approval process. Add another layer of authorization and flag all payments directed to personal bank accounts for review. Right away, he replied. I was plugging the holes. The next day, an anonymous message appeared in the company chat. Megan Miller's termination, suspected personal motives involved. Isn't this retaliation against a former sister-in-law? Rumors started. I saw the message, but offered no explanation. Instead, I gave a directive to HR. I want a complete revision of our operational manuals and a clear chart of duties and authorities for every department, distributed to all employees. Yes. Now. Yes. Now. I want it to be perfectly clear who is responsible for what. A week later, every employee received the new manual. It detailed the scope and authority of each position. The client management duties Megan once handled were now broken down, clearly defined. The employees read it, nodded. So that's why the system changed. It makes sense. When Megan handled everything, nothing was transparent. The rumors died down. Instead of arguing, I had answered with structure. Meanwhile, at a family gathering, Barbara held court. You know my former daughter-in-law? She's running that company like a dictator. What happened? A relative asked. She fired my daughter. It's revenge for the divorce. She acts all high and mighty as the boss, and this is what she does. The relatives clucked, bad-mouthing me. No one asked why Megan had been fired. A few days later, Megan packed her desk. She delivered her final shot. I can take more than half of my clients with me. Don't say I didn't warn you, Sarah. She walked out, head held high. I watched her from my office window. That afternoon, my phone rang. Ms. Hayes, this is Ken from Apex Foods. Ken, how are you? Good. I just need to confirm our invoice for this month. I tried calling Megan, but she didn't pick up. Megan is no longer with the company. From now on, I'll be handling your account personally. Oh, really? To be honest, we always preferred dealing with you directly anyway. Megan could be difficult at times. After hanging up, I checked my call log. Several other clients had already tried to contact me on my personal line. Megan's clients, I thought with a dry smile. Megan believed she managed those relationships, but in reality, the clients were looking for me all along. She had just been a middleman. The clients she threatened to take with her had no intention of following. I grew curious about something else. Were the performance reports Megan boasted about truly her own work? That Saturday, Megan sat across from Barbara, sipping coffee, a confident smirk on her face. Don't worry, Mom. I've already gotten a call from a competitor. Really? Which one? Are they paying you more? Barbara's face lit up. Starlight Provisions. Their head of sales saw my resume and called me right away. Real talent recognizes real talent. That's my girl. I knew you'd land on your feet. Of course, Green Valley Foods is going to struggle without me. I'll make Sarah Hayes regret this, Megan said boldly. Barbara beamed. On Monday, Megan started at Starlight Provisions. As an experienced hire, her orientation was brief. She brought a USB drive loaded with files from Green Valley, performance reports, client management templates, order forms. Here are some materials I used at my last company. They might be helpful, she told her new boss. You're very prepared, Megan. We're excited to have you. Megan's ego swelled. I'll do so well here. They'll be eating their words back at Green Valley. She barely paid attention during onboarding. At the same time, back at Green Valley Foods, I was looking through the shared folders Megan had left behind. I clicked on a performance report, then checked the document properties. Last modified by Sarah Hayes. Quarter 2 sales analysis report. Last modified by Sarah Hayes. Client satisfaction survey results. Last modified by Sarah Hayes. New procurement system proposal. Last modified by Sarah Hayes. I opened file after file. The pattern was the same. Megan would write a rough draft, and I would correct the data, polish the language, strengthen the conclusions. The digital trail was all there. I had to fix this much, I thought with a bitter smile. Megan believed her performance was her own, but it was me who had finished the work behind the scenes. For the rest of the week, Chloe, my ex-husband's new wife, was immersed in a shopping spree. Department stores, boutiques, luxury goods. These are wedding gifts from me to me, she declared, posing in front of a mirror with a new handbag for Instagram. This is what makes marriage worthwhile. Dan stood beside her, handing over his credit card. At first, he laughed it off as newlywed indulgence, but his expression soured with every receipt. Honey, you've spent over $3,000 this week alone. We're not going to keep this up, are we? What? I barely bought anything. Is this a big deal? The ink on our marriage license is barely dry, and you're already talking about money? I want to show off our new life to everyone. Dan fell silent. Too early to fight about finances, he must have thought. On Wednesday, Barbara called Chloe. Chloe, dear, why don't you come over this weekend? We can have a nice meal. Oh, Barbara, my schedule is completely packed this week. What could be so important? You're married now. You have to make time for your husband's family. I told you I'm busy. I'll come some other time. Chloe's tone was clipped before she hung up. Barbara stared at her phone, stunned. Barely a week into the marriage, and she already had the nerve to hang up on her mother-in-law? We'll see about this. Sarah had always visited them right after her wedding. Chloe seemed to have no interest. Meanwhile, at Green Valley Foods, the atmosphere was noticeably more relaxed. It's so much easier to work without Megan here, one employee whispered. I know, right? Her instructions were all over the place. Now, with the new manual, everything is crystal clear. Sarah really did a great job streamlining the system. Murmurs of agreement. In Megan's absence, workflows became orderly. The team felt relief. I watched them, smiling quietly. I hadn't changed people's feelings. I had changed the structure. The results followed naturally. Friday morning at Starlight Provisions, Megan took her first client call. Hello, Triton Foods Procurement? Yes, this is Megan Miller from Starlight Provisions about our latest order. I need you to recheck the unit price. It's different from last time. Megan fumbled with her papers. The price is correct on my end. What do you mean it's correct? It's $1 higher per unit than last month. Did you even look? The client's voice grew sharp. I'm telling you I checked. Is this how you check things? What kind of operation are you running over there? The line went dead. Megan stared at her phone, dumbfounded. Her manager walked over. What was that about? A client said the price was wrong, but I know it was right. Triton Foods. They're notoriously meticulous. You have to be extra careful with them. Megan didn't understand. They had never been this difficult when she was at Green Valley. In truth, Triton Foods had always disliked dealing with Megan. They found her attitude dismissive and her work sloppy. Every time there was an issue, I had personally called to smooth things over. Ken, I'm so sorry about that. Let me re-verify everything and send it over right away. Well, since it's you, Sarah, I'll trust you to handle it. But that Megan of yours is something else. I'll be sure to retrain her. I apologize for the inconvenience. I had always been the buffer. Megan never knew. Now at Starlight Provisions, with no Sarah to protect her, Megan had to face the client alone. The first crack had appeared. She put down the phone, a sense of dread creeping in. This wasn't going as planned. After the first client complaint, Megan felt a growing anxiety, but she refused to admit it. She was a top performer, she told herself. She would succeed at this new company. On Tuesday afternoon, an urgent order came in. A large restaurant chain needed a shipment of ingredients delivered by the next morning. Megan, can you handle this today? Her manager asked. Of course I've got it, she replied confidently. She opened the price list and began inputting the item costs. In her haste, she made a critical error. She used last month's price list. The order is placed, Megan reported. Her manager glanced at the document, his expression hardening. Megan, are these prices correct? Yes, I checked them. Did you check this month's price list? Only then did Megan realize her mistake. She hadn't. By the time she scrambled for the correct file, it was too late. The order had gone through, and the price difference would cost the company nearly $2,000. Why didn't you do the basic checks? His voice was icy. I'm sorry, I was in a hurry. You check things even when you're in a hurry. Is this the kind of mistake an experienced professional makes? We never had issues with this at my old company, Megan deflected. Her manager cut her off. Stop talking about your old company. This is Starlight Provisions. Make sure a mistake like this never happens again. He turned and walked away. Megan sat at her desk, clenching her fists, her face burning with humiliation. At that same moment, I was on the phone with an old client. Sarah, I'm calling about this month's pricing. Yes, go ahead. We accidentally submitted our order with last month's prices. Is it possible to correct it? Of course, I said warmly. I'll take care of it right away. After hanging up, I instructed the accounting team. Please send out a reminder with this month's price list to all clients. Let's prevent any confusion. I knew what was happening at Megan's new company. The industry was small, and word traveled fast. But I didn't interfere. This was Megan's mess to handle now. On Thursday, Barbara called me. Well, Sarah, I hear the company is doing just fine without my Megan. What are you referring to? I asked around. Everyone is working like nothing happened. I thought the business would collapse without my daughter, but it seems you're managing to stay afloat. Her voice dripped with sarcasm. The company runs on systems, Barbara, not on a single person. Systems, right? You're cold enough to run things like a machine, but you'll regret this later. If I have regrets, they'll be mine to deal with. You don't need to worry about it. I replied calmly and ended the call. Barbara slammed her phone down in frustration. That weekend, the newlyweds, Chloe and Dan, were arguing at home. Honey, should we go visit my mom this weekend? Dan asked tentatively. Chloe, in the middle of doing her makeup, turned around. Your mom's house? No thanks. We haven't been there once. We should at least say hello. It's uncomfortable. I don't want to go. Let's go to my mom's place instead. Dan sighed. How about next week then? Not next week either. I don't want to go to your parents' house. You can go by yourself. How can I go by myself? You're my wife now. That's your problem. I hate going to the in-laws, Chloe said dismissively as she applied her lipstick. Dan didn't know what else to say. At the end of the month, Dan received his credit card statement. $8,000. For a single month. He stared at the bill, his face turning white. Chloe, what is this? What on earth did you buy? He yelled. Chloe emerged from the bedroom. What's wrong? The credit card bill is $8,000. What have you been doing for the past month? Dan shouted, shaking the statement. For the first time in their relationship, he was truly angry. So we're married. Your money is our money. Our money. Does that mean you can spend it into oblivion? We'll go bankrupt. Of course. To be happy, I need to spend this much. Didn't you promise you'd let me do whatever I wanted? Did you forget that already? Chloe shot back, completely unabashed. Dan was speechless. Even so, this is too much. What's too much? Did your ex-wife not spend money? Are you comparing yourself to her? Do you have any idea how long I waited for you? How much anxiety I went through? Consider this my compensation. Faced with her counterattack, Dan fell silent. Chloe went back into the bedroom and shut the door. On Tuesday, a regular team meeting was held at Starlight Provisions. When it was Megan's turn, she began her presentation on the quarterly sales analysis. As she clicked through the slides, a senior manager frowned. Megan, this template looks familiar. Oh, I can faintly see the Green Valley Foods logo right here. He zoomed in. Sure enough, a faint watermark was visible. Megan stammered, flustered. That? I must have forgotten to delete it. Forgot? Did you just copy all these materials from your old company? No. I made the content. I only used the template, Megan insisted, her voice rising. But her manager asked coldly, Did you leak proprietary data when you left your last job? It's not a leak. I made the documents, so they're mine. Anything created at a company is company property. This could be a serious issue. The room turned frigid. Megan's face flushed as she tried to defend herself, but her colleagues looked at her with suspicion. After the meeting, she slumped at her desk, hands shaking. She truly believed she had created those materials, only now realizing that the template itself was something I had designed. It dawned on her then, the things she believed were her accomplishments were only possible because of my support, but she couldn't admit it. Instead, she became more defensive, digging herself into a deeper hole. While Megan's career was imploding, Barbara was pinning her hopes on Chloe. She was convinced Chloe would be an improvement over me. That hope was about to be shattered. Saturday was Barbara's birthday. She spent the morning cleaning, expecting her son and new daughter-in-law to arrive. But as the hours passed, no one came. She tried to reassure herself. Maybe Chloe was planning a surprise. Dan, when is Chloe coming? She finally called and asked. Dan's voice was hesitant. Mom, Chloe has to go to her parents' place today. What? It's my birthday. Did she forget? She knows, but she said the timing didn't work out. Barbara's anger flared. A daughter-in-law who doesn't even show up for her mother-in-law's birthday? Bring her here right now. How can she not come? Mom, I'll talk to her. She's just a very free-spirited person. Please try to understand. After Dan hung up, he pleaded with Chloe, but she just scoffed. Everyone is more individualistic these days. Do I really have to go just because it's her birthday? My plans are more important. But it's your first time celebrating her birthday as her daughter-in-law. It's about basic respect. Then you go by yourself. I have plans with my mom. Showing respect to my own mother is important, too. Chloe grabbed her designer bag and walked out the door, leaving Dan staring at the empty space where she stood. That evening, Barbara was back at the grocery store, venting to her neighbors. My new daughter-in-law didn't even come for my birthday. What are young people so busy with these days? Oh, really? That's too bad. You must be so disappointed. My former daughter-in-law was never like that. Sarah always gave me a generous gift and even took me to my doctor's appointments. For the first time, Barbara recalled my kindness, the monthly allowance, the rides to the hospital. I remember her. She had such a good reputation in the neighborhood. Why did they break up? Well, I guess their personalities didn't match, Barbara mumbled. She couldn't bring herself to admit her son had cheated. On Monday, a colleague cautiously approached me at work. "Ms. Hayes, my mom told me something. Apparently, your former mother-in-law has been talking about you a lot lately." "Oh, what is she saying? That you always gave her money? That you were a beautiful daughter-in-law?" I gave a weak smile. To say that now of all times. For a fleeting moment, I felt a pang of something, wondering if our relationship could be repaired. But I quickly shook my head. If I went back, the same toxic cycle would repeat. Barbara hadn't changed. She was just romanticizing the past because her present was uncomfortable. "It's fine," I said calmly. "They're not my problem anymore." I turned back to my work. On Wednesday evening, Barbara called me. "Sarah, it's me." "Hello, Barbara," I replied, maintaining a polite tone. "You're still human, aren't you? You should visit us sometime. Think of all the years we spent as a family." "Barbara, I am no longer part of that family. Even if you're divorced, there are still feelings. You know how well I treated you." Barbara's voice was soft, but her true intentions soon surfaced. "But you need to admit when you're wrong. Firing my Megan, shaming our family. You need to come over, apologize, and make things right." "Understood." Barbara was still blaming me. I hung up the phone. Nothing had changed. That same week, there was good news at Green Valley Foods. We had just signed a contract with a major new client, Sterling Group. "That's fantastic. Great work, everyone." I shook hands with my team. By eliminating the family drama and focusing solely on the business, the company had become more stable than ever. Clients trusted my professionalism and followed my lead. Meanwhile, Megan was struggling at Starlight Provisions, working late every night to fix her mistakes. "This is all my old company's fault," she muttered to herself. She blamed me for not training her properly and faulted the company's systems. She never once acknowledged her own shortcomings. "Sarah Hayes ruined me. It's all her fault." She continued to build a narrative of victimhood. That weekend, Chloe posted photos from a trip to Hawaii on Instagram. Hashtags. #HealingWithMom, #MotherDaughterTrip, #GoodTimes. "My mom is the best. This trip was amazing. Let's do it again next month." In the photos, Chloe and her mother smiled at a luxury resort. The entire trip, 5-star hotel, fine dining, shopping, was paid for with Dan's credit card. The total came to over $5,000 for 3 days. Dan just sighed when he saw the bill. Arguing would only lead to another fight. That evening, Barbara was once again talking about me with her neighbors. "Sarah used to give me a monthly allowance, every single month without fail. She sounds like a great daughter-in-law." She was. I didn't realize it then, but thinking back, she treated me very well. I could use that money for whatever I wanted. Now, my son and his new wife don't send me a dime. She acted as if she missed me, but in private, she still directed all her blame toward me. That night, I was at home, organizing old bank statements for my tax filings. As I reviewed the transfers to Barbara's account, I noticed something odd. March 2022, transfer to Barbara Miller, $500. March 2022, transfer to Barbara Miller, another $1,000. I racked my brain. That was when Barbara had called, saying Megan urgently needed money. I checked further back. A similar pattern emerged. On top of the regular $500 monthly allowance, there were irregular transfers of $300, $500, $1,000. July 2021, $1,000. Megan's credit card bill. November 2021, $700. Megan's emergency. May 2022, $1,000. Megan's medical expenses. I checked my notes. They matched the reasons Barbara had given me each time she asked for more money. It was all for Megan. So, the allowance I gave her was used to pay off Megan's debts. I let out a hollow laugh. Under the guise of family, Barbara had been funneling money from me to Megan, treating it as an entitlement. Closing the file, I made a promise to myself. I would never, ever go back. After realizing that Barbara had used my allowance to cover Megan's debts, I closed the door to that part of my life for good. On Tuesday afternoon, Chloe was sitting at a cafe with her mother. "Mom, here's your allowance for the month." "Let me know if you need more," Chloe said, handing her an envelope containing $1,000 in cash. "Oh, Chloe, this is so much." "Of course. Enjoy it, Mom. I'll give you more next month." Chloe's face was full of pride. Her mother took the envelope with a pleased smile. "You're such a good daughter. And Mom, I booked a trip to Vietnam for us next month." "Really? But we just got back from Hawaii. Won't your husband say something if you're away from home so often?" "Don't worry, I handled it. Dan doesn't dare say no to me," Chloe said confidently. The money, of course, was all coming from Dan's bank account. That evening, Barbara called Dan. "Dan, is Chloe coming this weekend?" "Mom, I'm so sorry. She's not coming again." Barbara's voice rose. "She has to go to her parents' place. She's always going to her parents' place. When is she going to come here? She hasn't even properly greeted us." "I'll talk to her." Dan sighed and hung up. He cautiously brought it up with Chloe. "Honey, my mom wants us to come over this weekend. I have to go to my mom's." "You always go to your mom's. Can't we just go to my parents once?" Chloe put down her phone and looked at him directly. "You want me to ignore my family to see yours? That's my choice to make. Even if it's a choice, you have to show some courtesy. My mom is hurt. We can just stop by for a little while." "Courtesy? I hate the atmosphere at your parents' house. It's uncomfortable. If I don't want to go, I'm not going." Chloe stated her position firmly and disappeared into the bedroom. Dan collapsed onto the sofa. The next day, Dan went to see Barbara alone. When she heard the news, her face turned red. "Why isn't Chloe coming? Is she ignoring me?" "Mom, she's just busy." "Busy with what? She's always at her mom's. It's not like she works. She does nothing all day." Dan looked uncomfortable. "I'll try to convince her." "Convince her? You're her husband. You should be bringing her, not convincing her." Dan didn't answer. At home, he had to cater to Chloe's whims. With his mother, he had to soothe her anger. Caught in the middle, he was growing exhausted. That week at Green Valley Foods, a rumor started circulating again. The boss fired her former sister-in-law. It had to be personal, right? "No way. I heard it was purely a performance issue." As the whispers continued, I made a decision. I called in the head of HR. "I want to quantify our entire performance review process, set clear KPIs, create quarterly evaluation forms, and make the results transparent to all employees. Effective immediately, yes. Yes. When fairness is demonstrated with numbers, the rumors will stop." A week later, employees received the new evaluation system. Everything was clearly measured: contribution to sales, work accuracy, teamwork scores. Wow, looking at this, it's obvious why Megan was let go. Yeah, the numbers don't lie. It all makes sense now. The rumors died down again. I had proven my case, not with words, but with data. On Thursday, Megan made another mistake at Starlight Provisions. She missed a delivery deadline for a major restaurant chain. "Megan, why wasn't yesterday's delivery made?" An urgent call came from the client. "Yesterday? My schedule says it's for tomorrow." "What?" "The contract clearly states yesterday. Didn't you check?" Megan frantically checked the paperwork. It was indeed dated for the previous day. "I'm so sorry. I must have gotten confused." "Confused? We couldn't open our restaurant today. We're filing a formal complaint." The line went dead. Megan's face turned ashen. Her manager rushed over, his voice cold. "Megan, what are you doing? Are you here to play games? At my old company, we checked things differently, and it was fine. Stop talking about your old company. This is Starlight Provisions. But Sarah never trained me properly." "Then go back there. Go get retrained by her," the manager snapped. "If your old company was so great, go back. But stop making excuses here." Megan bit her lip, speechless. On Friday, Barbara ran into an acquaintance at the market. "How's the new daughter-in-law? Are you happy?" "She's fine," Barbara mumbled, not wanting to admit the truth. Instead, she found another target. "You know my former daughter-in-law, Sarah? She's a ruthless woman." "Ruthless? I met her once, and she seemed so calm and polite." "No. She fired my daughter and abandoned her family. That's the kind of person she is." Barbara continued to blame me, redirecting the stress Chloe was causing her. Over the weekend, Dan was at home, trying to sort out his finances. He noticed a strange pattern in his bank account. 5th of the month, $1,000 living expenses. 15th of the month, $500 living expenses. 25th of the month, $300 living expenses. "Honey," he asked Chloe, What are all these living expenses transfers? They're living expenses, she replied, annoyed. But they're so frequent. You need to explain what each one is for. The 5th is for our household, she snapped. The 15th is to help my mom with her living expenses, and the 25th is her allowance. Her living expenses? Why is that coming from my account? Dan's eyes widened. My mom lives alone, so I help her out. So, you're sending your mom $1,500 a month? What's wrong with that? She's my mother, Chloe said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Dan looked at the statement again. Over the past year, he had sent over $18,000 to his mother-in-law. This isn't a marriage, he thought for the first time. It's a sponsorship. Chloe was treating his family like they were invisible while pouring his money into hers. Sponsorship? Are you serious? What is wrong with you? Well, if you were going to send that much money to your family, you should have at least told me. Told you what for? You said I could spend the money as I saw fit. This is me seeing fit. Chloe saw nothing wrong with her actions. Dan clutched the bank statement. He finally understood what and who he had married. After discovering Chloe was sending $1,500 a month to her mother, Dan couldn't sleep. His bank balance was dwindling, and the credit card debt was snowballing. The thought that this wasn't a marriage replayed in his mind. On Wednesday evening, he made his decision. When Chloe walked in with new shopping bags, Dan was waiting for her. Honey, we need to talk. About what? I'm tired. Can we do this tomorrow? She said, tossing her bags onto the sofa. I want a divorce. The room fell silent. Chloe stared at him. A divorce? Did you eat something bad for dinner? I can't live with you anymore. Dan's voice was firm. Chloe was quiet for a moment. Then she scoffed. Fine, but you'll be paying a hefty alimony. Alimony? After all the money you've spent. Do you have any shame? Of course. You're the one demanding the divorce, so you have to pay. It's the law. Chloe didn't cry or beg. She immediately started calculating. Let's start with $200,000 as a base. Then add compensation for emotional distress. $200,000? Do you know how much money that is? You failed to be a committed husband. You always sided with your family and neglected me. I can definitely get that much, she said confidently. Dan was at a loss for words. The next day, Dan went to see Barbara. When she heard the news, her face turned red. Another divorce? How long has it been since you remarried? And now you want another divorce? Mom, I really can't do this anymore. What do you mean you can't? I'm so embarrassed. I could die. What will the neighbors say? Barbara wasn't worried about her son. She was worried about her reputation. A son who's been divorced twice. My goodness. Mom, that's not what's important right now. My life is at stake. Of course, it's important. Why is my life turning out like this? Barbara only thought of herself. Dan no longer expected any comfort from his mother. On Friday, Chloe posted on Instagram, Marriage is not a solo act. It can't be sustained if one person isn't trying. I did my best, but my partner didn't. Now I have to make a new choice for my own happiness. The accompanying photo was a blurry shot of a rain-streaked window. The comments poured in. Stay strong. You did nothing wrong. Cheering for your new beginning. Chloe was carefully crafting a victim narrative while continuing to press Dan for alimony. I spoke to a lawyer. I can get $250,000. Are you really going to do this? Of course. I can't afford to take a loss. She wouldn't back down. Dan felt like he was suffocating. That night, Dan drank alone, thinking of me. I took the easy way out back then, he thought. He regretted feeling bored in our marriage, getting swept up in Chloe's excitement, and making the decision to divorce so lightly. Maybe I should at least apologize to Sarah. But he couldn't bring himself to pick up the phone. He felt guilty, but taking actual responsibility for his actions was another matter entirely. In the end, Dan did what he always did. He avoided it. That same week, Green Valley Foods underwent its annual audit. An external team came in to review all accounting and HR records. Miss Hayes, your personnel management system is exceptionally well organized, the lead auditor commented. Thank you. The clear division of authority, in particular, minimizes risk. It's very impressive. The company received high marks thanks to the system I had implemented after Megan left. Efficiency was even better than last year. The employees were satisfied. The audit passed without issue, and the company grew even more stable. In contrast, Megan was becoming increasingly isolated at Starlight Provisions. After the delivery schedule mistake, she was removed from all important tasks. "Megan, I'm having Ken handle this project." "Why? I'm the one in charge of that account." "You make too many mistakes. For now, just stick to support tasks." Megan was furious. "It's not that I'm not capable. People make mistakes." "Megan, stop," her manager said flatly. "That excuse doesn't work here." She felt her pride crumble. She believed she was a star performer, but no one here recognized it. Her defensiveness grew, and her relationships with her colleagues soured. "Sarah Hayes ruined me," she thought. "It's all her fault I ended up like this." She still refused to acknowledge her own failures. On Monday, Dan met with a lawyer to find a way to reduce the alimony payment. "Your wife is demanding $250,000. Given the short duration of the marriage and the lack of clear fault, we can probably negotiate it down. Are you considering an uncontested divorce? What about the division of assets?" Division of assets? Dan's head spun. He didn't even have a clear picture of his own finances. "Do you have any assets jointly owned with your former spouse?" "Well, there's the company stock." Dan remembered that he and I had shared ownership of Green Valley Foods. He had signed over half of his shares to me during the divorce. "Then let's look into that. If there's anything that wasn't properly settled, we might be able to use it as leverage." Spurred by the lawyer's words, Dan went home and started digging through old paperwork from his first divorce. He found the asset division agreement and the stock transfer documents. But something was strange. Everything that had been in my name was meticulously finalized. The joint bank account was closed. The stock was fully separated. Even a business loan I had co-signed for was completely paid off. "She already cut every single tie." Dan laughed, a hollow, defeated sound. "I had already blocked every potential financial loophole. There was nothing left for him to grab onto. Even if he wanted to, I was always so thorough." Putting the papers down, Dan realized I had sealed every crack. It was impossible for him to lean on me again. I was completely, unshakably independent. And I was just looking for another easy way out. Dan hung his head in shame. But he still didn't take responsibility. He just started looking for his next excuse. His habit of avoidance remained unchanged. Once Dan realized I had severed every financial tie, his world began to collapse. Chloe was demanding a fortune. Megan was about to lose her job, and Barbara had lost all face. In their desperation, they all turned to one person. On Tuesday afternoon, Barbara showed up unannounced at my office. "Sarah, we need to talk." "What brings you here?" I asked, rising from my chair. Barbara looked exhausted, but still tried to appear defiant. "Our family is a mess. Dan is getting divorced again, and Megan is about to be fired from her job." "And what does that have to do with me?" I asked calmly. Barbara hesitated, then revealed her true motive. "You need to fix it. Talk some sense into Dan. Help Megan with her job situation. You're capable. You're good at handling these things." Her words held no apology, no remorse, only a deep-seated dependency. She expected me to clean up their mess one more time. "Barbara, it's time to separate personal and professional matters." "Isn't that what you always told me? Separate personal and professional. I'm finally taking your advice." My voice was steady. Barbara looked stunned. "That's not what I meant. Family is supposed to help each other." "Family? I'm divorced. We're strangers now. Even strangers have lingering feelings. How can you be so cold after all the years we spent together?" "It's not coldness. It's principle," I replied, my voice unwavering. "The very principle you taught me." "You ungrateful!" Barbara started to yell, but I quietly opened the door for her. "Please leave. I will not get involved in that family's affairs ever again." Barbara was speechless. The words she had once used as a weapon were now being used against her. That same afternoon at Starlight Provisions, Megan made her final mistake. She incorrectly filled out a major purchase order, mixing up the items and quantities. "Megan, what is this?" her manager yelled, storming over with the paperwork. "The order is completely wrong. The client just canceled everything. How are you going to take responsibility for this?" "But I checked it. This is how you check things. How many mistakes do you have to make before you get it?" The manager's face was red with anger. Megan tried to make an excuse, but fell silent. "It's not my fault. This company's system is too complicated. It's the system's fault? Everyone else manages just fine. Why is it only you? Megan couldn't answer. The manager drew a firm line. We'll be finalizing this through HR. I can no longer work with you. What? You're firing me. We don't need an employee who only causes financial losses due to incompetence. Megan slammed her hand on the desk, but no one came to her defense. As she packed her things, she refused to accept any responsibility. What did I do wrong? It's everyone else's fault. There was no regret, no self-reflection, only blame. On Thursday, Chloe and Dan were at the lawyer's office. $200,000 is excessive given the short length of the marriage, Dan's lawyer argued. Chloe scoffed. Excessive? I suffered immense emotional distress. Emotional distress? Yes. I was stressed from dealing with my in-laws, and my husband was emotionally absent. I fully deserve it. Chloe wouldn't budge. How about we reduce it to $50,000? No, it's $200,000, or we don't have a deal. She was fixated on the money. Exhausted, Dan dropped his head. Fine. You can have it. Chloe signed the papers with a satisfied smirk, showing no hint of remorse. On Friday, Dan sat alone in a cafe. His divorce was in process. His mother blamed him for everything, and Megan wasn't even returning his calls. What did I do wrong? He mumbled to himself. But it wasn't genuine introspection. He simply couldn't understand why everyone else wouldn't understand him. Maybe I should call Sarah. He pulled out his phone, then put it back. He couldn't muster the courage. In the end, Dan did nothing. His avoidance continued, but now there was no one left to enable him. That evening, I was at a company dinner with my employees. To a great year, Miss Hayes. Our performance was outstanding. It's all thanks to your hard work. Cheers to everyone, I said, raising my glass. I was poised, professional, and in control. But when I returned home, I sank onto my sofa. Only then did the emotions hit me. Barbara's entitled face, Dan's cowardly avoidance, Megan's bitter resentment. It all came flooding back. It was hard for me, too. Tears streamed down my face. The pent-up emotions finally broke free. I was strong at the office, but here alone, I allowed myself to be vulnerable. After I cried, I felt a little lighter. It's really over now. I wiped my tears and lifted my head. It was the beginning of my recovery. A month later, Barbara ran into an acquaintance at the grocery store. How have you been? Just getting by, Barbara answered gloomily. Dan was divorced again. Megan was unemployed. And Chloe had walked away with a fortune. And your former daughter-in-law? Do you still talk to her? No, Barbara said with a bitter smile. She's a stranger to us now. She remembered her own words, separate personal and professional. That phrase had become the standard. I had protected my company with systems. Barbara, who had only used her family for exploitation, saw that same logic boomerang back on her through Chloe and Megan. I never had to lift a finger. I just lived by my principles, and the toxic structure they had built collapsed on its own. That evening, I looked out my office window at the glittering city lights. A quiet smile formed on my lips. I did the right thing. I have no regrets. I had finally acknowledged my own strength. I had refused to be exploited in the name of family, lived by principle instead of emotion, and in the end, I had saved myself. Sarah Hayes was ready for a new day. The past was over, and the future was hers. What would you have done if you found yourself in my shoes? Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and protecting yourself? Tell me what you think. I really want to know.